Um, so I'm going to introduce her to you all. So Diana Trujillo, as you just read about, was actually born and raised in Cali, Colombia, where as a young Latina, she imagined exploring and traveling through space. At the age of 17, Diana immigrated to the United States to pursue her dream of one day working for NASA. Beginning in 2008, she was able to achieve that goal, joining NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory as an aerospace engineer. Currently, Diana serves as one of the mission leads for NASA's next generation Mars rover, Perseverance. In that role, she is tactically responsible for the team that commands the rover activities of the day, as well as a team that analyzes the rover's telemetry and behavior to determine healthy state. Previously, she served as the surface flight director during surface commissioning and the deputy surface phase lead on the mission's robotic arm and the Sherlock and the Pixel scientific instruments, which identify, evaluate, and collect critical information on the surface of Mars. She is a former mission lead and deputy team chief of the engineering division of Curiosity, the Mars Science Laboratory, NASA's first generation of the advanced Mars rovers. Diana earned a BS in aerospace engineering from the University of Maryland, with additional studies at the University of Florida. She is also a graduate of Miami-Dade Community College and the NASA Academy. So Diana is part of the executive team at the Brooke Owens Fellowship, a highly competitive program that provides internship and mentorship to extraordinary undergraduate women seeking careers in aviation or space exploration. A member of the Tecnolochicas campaign to raise awareness among young Latinas and their families about opportunities and careers in technology. She's a member of the board of the Columbia Memorial Space Center, a science center open to the public and based in a predominantly Latina community, and a member of the board of the Children's Center at Caltech, a center that is revolutionizing early child development education. She is a recipient of the 22nd MAS Award presented by the government of Colombia to the 22nd Most Inspiring Colombians, and was the host and co-producer of the ever first NASA broadcast in Spanish of a planetary mission, which we just showed actually a minute and a half of that. So join me in welcoming Diana to our joint meeting this morning. We have 132 people online, so she's here to share her story, to talk to 132 principals and assistant principals and members of their instructional teams that represent Huntington Park and Southgate. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Diana.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm doing it on my cell phone. My internet just went out a few minutes ago, so we'll make this work. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so happy and excited to be here with you all. And so, buenos días. Estoy viendo todos los nombres de todas las personas latinas en la reunión. Y me da mucha felicidad saber que tantos de nosotros estamos ayudando a hacer, ayudar a los estudiantes a que les guste STEM. I'm going to just keep going in English instead so that we all can, so that I can remember my own terms in English. I would say, so today I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about my story, a little bit about how it worked out for me and what I end up doing and what I'm doing now. I think that honestly, my intent with this 15 minutes or so that I have with you all is to talk to you about how, the education system and the teachers, the principals, all the other people that are around me that might not have been directly related with me through classes, but still in the same school, really pushed me forward and helped me get to where I am. So let me just start by saying, like I was introduced, I was born and raised in Colombia. I really think I was very lucky to have been in an education system where my teachers and the principals and everybody really, really care about me. I was lucky enough that I was in a school where I started kindergarten, and it was, we don't go to middle school and then high school in a different place. It's also all in the same place. So my actual kindergarten teacher was later on in the year on middle school with me because it was the same school, and it was great to have started kindergarten with so many kiddos that I graduated from 11th grade in my case, with the same people. And obviously new people joined the class, but my point here is that I really had the opportunity to develop relationships with the educators. I really had the opportunity to really feel like my teachers were my second parents and really think that way, and not, something, I see them and then I don't see them again. I think that that really helped me have the opportunity to be more open and more grounded on the fact that there were things that I knew that I was struggling with for a while, and they had seen that I was struggling for a while. So my teachers really invested in me, and I trusted them because they had seen my progress or my lack of progress. Why am I telling you all of this? Because although I work at NASA today and I'm working on the Mars rover, it is funny for me to say that I could not do any worse than anybody else, or worse than everybody else on my physics classes. High school physics for me was horrifying. And I think that this is where the power of you all come in. High school physics was horrifying, but my teacher didn't make me feel stupid about it. My teacher simply helped me recognize that it was hard because I needed to have a different perspective. It was hard because I was too gung-ho on making sure that I will ace my test instead of learning, and help me see that my grades themselves weren't a reflection of how much I was learning. It was a reflection of how much I was passing the metrics that it was being used so that I can actually know how much my progress was. But my teacher made the distinction in between if you're doing bad doesn't mean you're not getting anything, versus if you're doing A's all the time, you're just getting all the material. So that gave me a lot of peace, and honestly helped me not walk away from STEM and math and science. I think that that's one aspect. The other aspect was my science teacher really helped me see that I knew, and it felt good. And so what I mean with that is, on the other side, I was really doing really well with biology and chemistry in high school. And my teacher, instead of giving me the homework or the exam and tell me, okay, you finished first, now sit there and wait. I remember my teacher actually going the extra mile and saying, hey, here's additional problems that you can take a look at while everybody else is finishing the test. Why don't you take this one, or come sit over here, let's just do this together. And it felt great because it felt like, maybe in my adolescent child mind, it felt like somebody cared enough to want to go extra mile when there was no reason for them to do that. So I think that that combination of those two things, of here's more so you can do more, just for the sheer purpose of learning and not just for getting grades, and hey, you're struggling, but that's okay, it's good to learn, and that's more important than getting A's. Those two things combined helped me understand where I belonged in all of this. So like we said at the beginning, my name is Diana Trujillo, and I have been lucky to be currently working with a international team of scientists and engineers. We have the most awesome job, I think. Our job is to find out if there was life on the surface of another planet in the past. I have been lucky to have worked in 2 different missions, Curiosity and now Perseverance. Curiosity's job was to find out if there was the ability to sustain life, and we did find that. And then Perseverance is, now that we know Mars sustained life in the past, now let's go ahead and try to find out if there is life now. If there is traces of life on Mars in the past. So is there that trace now? I have been lucky in my mind also to have been a Hispanic woman that get to do this. I think that I'm lucky because I feel like my culture really pushed me forward to do what I do today. My job really is to come up with ideas that sound crazy and that will never happen, and that people are supposed to look at them and say, that is not going to work. And my job is to actually think about those ideas and think how to make it work. And the reason why I love that about the fact that I'm a Latina woman is the fact that I think that as a Latina, that is just in my veins, right? That is ingrained in the way that I am, which is we don't back down. We always find a solution. There's no option to fail because you're constantly, trying to get something that maybe the opportunity is not there, or maybe the situation that you are in is not the best situation. And so you're constantly pushing that boundary. What I mean with that is I came to the US when I was 17. I had $300 in my pocket and I didn't know any English. And like many of the Latinos that immigrate to this country, I started from the bottom. I was cleaning, I was working hard to make sure that I could pay English, but also at the same time survive. And I think that start for me helped me a ton, because that start helped me realize that the limit, even though there's limitations on where I am and everything around me, because, I'm not talking about I'm going to Harvard, I'm talking about doing something else, trying to survive. I think that starting point for me helped me realize that I had to find my path and that I had to not see things as limitations, but as opportunities. If something came my way that felt difficult, it wasn't oh no, this is something I need to overcome. It was just more of this is something that I don't know, that is an opportunity that I have, that I can learn about and be confident about my learning. So I think this also, by the way, goes back to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago. I think I just said confident about my learning. Confident about my learning is what my physics teacher helped me understand. Confident that I don't know, but confident that I can learn. And it doesn't matter if I am doing well or not, I'm still trying. And so going back to it, I think that those perspectives that I earn and that I have as a Latina woman is something that has pushed me forward. Like I was mentioning, my job is to find solutions of things that people think is not possible. And I think I've been very lucky to work with the team that I do now, because we are all on the same page with respect to how do we find solutions for the problems that we're seeing. When I joined the Perseverance team, as we were, which was five years ago or so, as we were proceeding with getting all the hardware assembled, ensuring that we were doing all the testing. At some point, a few months before launch, it gets very heavy. It gets very, very hectic. You're working nonstop hours. At some point, I don't remember if it was day or night, but I think that it went back to, we know we can get this done. We don't back down. We don't quit. We're gonna keep pushing. And it was great. We had a few months to actually figure out how to assemble the rover. And we got so many positive messages from everybody around the world telling us that they were counting on us, that they knew that we were working very hard and that they were excited that we were going to go to Mars. And unfortunately, as we started to do the last 2 months before we got into the launch vehicle, the pandemic hit. And we had to figure out within 2 months how to do all the stuff that we have been doing for years on different missions in person, but now doing it through virtually. And we weren't prepared for that, but again, this was one of those things where we could see as oh no, this is horrible. What are we going to do? With horrible from the perspective of this is different than the way that I constantly work. This is horrible because the way that I am working is now, restructure on the fly, let alone the pandemic itself and all of the horrible things that were happening and how it was affecting individuals and the country and the world. I think that we had to figure it out on the fly, how we were going to do and refocus into what to do next and stay on target. We got into the launch vehicle. Just to put it a little bit on perspective, if we didn't make it to the launch vehicle, every 2 years is when Mars and Earth line up in a way that is the shortest distance. If we don't get on the launch vehicle on the time that we're expecting, then we have to wait 2 years to send it again. And so for us, it was very important that we got to the launch vehicle because it was a 2-year delay otherwise. But anyways, as we were getting closer to getting into the launch vehicle, some of the buildings in the United States, kind of like when there's Christmas, they put all the Christmas colors. In this specific case, some of the buildings in the US light themselves red. I remember seeing a picture of the Empire State Building going red. And that was a few days before we launched. It was great because it reminded me and a lot of the team members of the human power, when we come together united with one single goal, the power of actually create and explore, and the power of doing it together. And so we get on the launch vehicle, we do it on time, and then it's 6 months where we travel around 470 million kilometers to get to Mars, where the team itself is actually trying to figure out now, what do we do once we get to the surface of Mars? When we got to the surface of Mars, it was February 18, and like it was introduced on my bio, October right before February. So February 18 is when we landed, and the October right before it, I remember thinking about, this sort of landings with NASA don't happen that often. It has happened 5 times in our entire lifetime, 5 times where a rover or a lander, has landed on Mars from the US, and 5 times only. And I felt that we were not going to waste this opportunity to not use it to advocate for science even more. So I got together with the NASA en Español team, and I pitched to them the idea that we should do something. We should absolutely do something. We should do something in Spanish. The transmission in English, of course, always happens, but the one in Spanish hadn't happened. So I co-produced and co-wrote, co-hosted everything for that day, and it was amazing. I remember we talked about doing a show, a 30-minute show for maybe 100 people, if it will work. Turns out that we did an 1.5-hour show and 4 million people watched it. And I was so happy about it because I feel like, NASA realized that we need to do this not just now, but forever in Spanish. And we obviously have NASA en Español content all the time in Spanish, but I think that the difference this time was that we were going to do something that was real-time transmitted from a mission that hadn't done it before. And so I got to do the play-by-play count of the landing in Spanish. My country was amazing. My country, Colombia, put it on the public channel for everybody to see and hear. And my grandma got to see it. And yeah, we landed. I think that you probably saw some of the pictures earlier. And then after that, we did a ton of first drive, first touch of the surface, first helicopter fly on another planet. I had the honor to be the flight director for the deployment of that first helicopter, and then the first coring or sample collection that we did. All of that to say, though, that although it sounds like a lot of firsts and a bunch of people that got together that did an amazing thing, I don't see it like that. I see it more as a instant in our life and an instant in history where, something very horrible like a pandemic was happening, and we still managed to find our human strength through connections, connecting together, and pushing forward to do something that was amazing, so that we can also remember that no matter what's happening, we can still push forward and do something great. So I'm very proud of being part of this team, and I'm honestly very proud of being, as ridiculous as it might sound, right? I'm very proud of being part of the humankind and the human species right now in this time. I know it's a horrible time, but at the same time, I know that times like this is what makes you have to look internally and bring the best of yourself, because there's nothing else left to do. So anyways, that's kind of my introduction and what I have done. And thank you very much for your invitation.
Gracias, Diana. Thank you so much for joining us for a few minutes. Might you have a few minutes to maybe entertain just a couple of questions before you go on with the rest of your day?
Of course.
All right, so I want to open up the floor here. Maybe raise your hands, and Lillian can kind of monitor that. And we'll ask that we'll get a few people to ask some questions. I can start us off for a moment, Diana. So like you mentioned, you know, when you were struggling in physics, thinking back to your physics teacher, like, do you think your physics teacher would have imagined you doing what you're doing now?
No, I don't think so. I think that I didn't imagine it myself, so it will be too much to put on my own teacher to think that I was gonna do that. No, I don't think he imagined that. I don't think that I have the confidence to imagine it myself. But I do think that my physics teacher saw something that I didn't see. And I don't, you know, he didn't verbalize it to me, but he verbalizes through teaching me my confidence through learning, right? It's okay if you're having a hard time, but don't walk away. Just find another way. And I think that that was very helpful for me.
Gracias, Diana. And we have a question here from Director Jose Hernandez. He's from the Southgate Community of Schools. Go ahead, Jose.
Buenos días, Diana. Primeramente, felicidades. Un orgullo para todos nosotros. Y en el campo de la educación es un poco difícil porque las palabras que mencionaste acerca de learning versus grading, it's a difficult concept for us educators who grew up grading. So that definitely resonates with me. And at the same time, you also mentioned throughout your presentation a lot of solving problems. So besides the content, learning about physics and science and biology, what other skills do you think are essential for us to be successful in the field of science?
I love your question. So I'll tell you where I think it started to come back to me. I think that what's essential is to try to look at nature and find the relationship with what you're learning. Because I think that what happens is, I'll tell it to you from my own experience, right? Like I started to see education as I need to pass that test. I need to study this, I need to pass that test. And it was all about passing the test. But then there was a point where the equation really was meaningless if I couldn't actually apply it to anything. So the moment I actually started to see that there was a direct relationship in between what was happening in nature and what I was learning, that's when I was like, I see it now, right? And so, you know, we talk about electricity and charge, but the moment, I mean, not to like think about Benjamin Franklin, but the moment he understood how, you know, how lightning was working, it's like, okay, I can see it now. I can see lightning, I can see batteries, I can see charge, right? And I think that it is not, it is the simplicity of the model of seeing how, you know, how a hummingbird can be close to a helicopter, right? And not so much like I'm going to do all the math about it, but just know that there's a relationship. I think that that's when you start seeing STEM as a thing that I use every day and not as a thing that I only use when it's super special and I need to be Albert Einstein to get it. Does that make, do I make sense, Jose?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a couple more questions. Mr. Maciel.
Gracias, señor Loera. Buenos días, Diana. One of the things that resonates with me is the fact that in education, we try to push for students to go to four-year college because community college, we frown upon that. And yet we have you here. I deal with the at-risk population that most of our students go to community college. What would you say to those individuals in that regard?
That's an excellent question, because for everybody else that doesn't know that, right, I went to community college. And so I would say, come to see my community college commencement speech. I would say, no, honestly, I'll tell you this. I don't know why it's a frown upon. I understand why, but at the same time, I don't agree. I will tell you that in community college, transitioning from my school to community college was just because in community college, you felt the same family with the teachers, right? And with the professors in this case, right? They were very much like, it's a few of us. The professors knew us by name. They will help us honestly, even more. I was not in a classroom with 300 people doing, Cal 3. I was in a class with 10 people and my professor will help me. And so I think that it's, my recommendation about what I will say is, I don't know. I think that the answer to me was clear from the financial standpoint, and the rest is on me. I'm gonna learn. The book is no different, right? And so it is up to me to get the best out of the opportunity that I have been given. The opportunity that I had was community college. The opportunity that I could afford was community college. And my focus was to study and get the best out of it. I don't think that if I had gone to college directly, I would have been able to have the mental focus to focus on my school, because I will be too worried about how I was going to pay. And so I think it was the right balance for me to know that the environment was the right environment to give me peace, that I can focus on my studies, and then the rest was up to me to run. And so I think that I'm happy to be an example, Marcial. I'm happy to show people that community college is really a good place to start. And then there was one additional thing that I am grateful about having gone to community college is that my community college had an agreement with University of Florida. And so as soon as I got certain all my grades, I was very lucky to have gotten a scholarship to go to a 4-year university. Otherwise, I could not have afforded. So
you're a good example that all universities, by the way, all colleges are good, but you're a good example how the person makes the college does not make the person. So
yes.
thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alan. And I think we have time for one more question, Mr. Alfaro, assistant principal from Huntington Park High School.
Sí, muy buenos días a señora Trujillo, bienvenida y muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Primero que nada, felicidades por todos sus logros. Siempre vemos la educación, bueno, muchos de nosotros vemos la educación como un triángulo donde en una parte están los estudiantes, otra parte están los maestros o el sistema educativo y la tercera parte son los padres. Me gustaría preguntarle cuál fue la influencia que tuvieron sus padres para que usted pudiera llegar a hacer todos sus logros, y sabemos que, bueno, tiene ahorita una audiencia de educadores, pero si pudiéramos transmitir un mensaje a los padres, ¿qué les gustaría decir o qué les podría aconsejar?
Tu pregunta es buenísima. I think I'll answer your question and I'll tell you what I think the right thing in my mind is. My parents did not support what I was doing. My parents were both in Colombia, and in fact, my dad, in a conversation that we had, he told me, in the most loving way that somebody can say this, that I was not smart enough to work at NASA. And I remember that was heartbreaking, but at the same time, it was like, okay, let's not talk anymore. But I understand, right? Like, in some level, my parents were limited by what they knew was possible. It wasn't because they didn't believe that I could do something. Maybe they did, but I think that the believing was because when you talk about NASA, somewhere in your brain, Einstein comes in, and then you look at your child and you're like, you're not Einstein. That's the picture comes to my mind. It's certainly not NASA. And you make that route. And I think that's what my parents were doing in their minds. They were very encouraging about learning. But when the target got too high, I think that they try to normalize it. But what do I actually think is the right way to help? If I could go back and somebody had explained to my parents, well, first they would have had to be here, but let's just pretend they were in the US. If somebody had explained to my parents the different types of work that was available, right? And then explain to my parents the pay grade of those jobs. Then they will have been like, oh my gosh, why are you not an astronomer? But before that, it's like astronomer or astrology sounds very close. Maybe it's the same. And it's like, no. And then it's like, Mija, you're going to be sitting looking at the stars? Like, who's going to pay you for that? And it's like, I'm going to get paid a lot. So I think that is when it brings it together for the parents, where it doesn't sound like a dream that you're going to end up not making any money and living on the garage. I don't know if I will just speak for my Colombians. I feel like if I were to tell my abuela I was going to be an astronomer, she'll be like, yeah, I'll clean my garage so you can come live here because you're not going to make money. And I think that's a complete misconception. And the misconception comes from the fact that, unfortunately, in our countries, you don't go outside and your vecino is an astronomer and your person in the front is like a scientist that's discovering a vaccine, and it's not normal, right? Which is sad, but I think that this is where we come in and we explain that it is normal to do those things, that it is not unattainable, unachievable, only certain people, only if you go to Harvard or MIT is achievable. To Alan's question, only if you go to certain colleges and not community college, like all of these things that are wrong, only if you have these types of work. And it's like, no, listen, you can clean houses, go to community college and still make it at NASA and make this amount of money. So, and I will just say one more thing, because this is such an interesting topic. You can even be an astronaut, right? Jose Hernandez, who is one of the, he's not the first, but he's one of like the second or the third Hispanic astronauts. He was a seasonal worker with his parents, right? And so what you do doesn't mean where you're gonna go, but if the parents don't see it, certainly is where you're gonna end up, right? Because it's too much fighting at home and that sort of thing for the parents to see it. So I hope that this answers your question. I think that it really goes down where the rubber meets the road is where the parents see this is all the school, this is all the careers that they can do, like the areas, this is how much they get paid. And by the way, they can get financial aid in some cases, even though that sounds like a foreign concept. People will pay you to go to school. And I know you all know this, but to me it was like, you're gonna pay me to go to school? Like, that's crazy. And I think that some parents might actually not see that. So I don't know, I'm speaking maybe as a first generation or as an immigrant, and maybe hopefully you're dealing with parents that are second or third generation and they understand that educational system. But I still think that it is quite foreign to understand the educational system on the help that could provide and the type of work that is available once you come out of it. Does that answer your question?
It certainly does. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Diana, for joining us and carving out some time of what I'm sure is a pretty busy day. Hopefully the Mars Perseverance hasn't run out of batteries or something while you're here doing your thing. So thank you. I know we have many folks that have still burning questions, and unfortunately we won't be able to get to all of them. I just once again, thank you for spending some time with us, and we want to wish you a really great and excellent rest of your day.